How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another one of my info dump RF4 videos. I have some exciting news to share with you later on regarding my Discord community and the large events we have planned, as well as a bunch of projects I've been working on throughout the year. So I hope you'll stick around for that announcement, and now with all that said, let's get into the guide. In this video we're going to cover the difference between drag and mech strength, and some advanced techniques for locking your reel on large fish. To start with, we'll go over some basic information about drag, and then talk about the reel mechanism strength, more commonly known as mech strength. Drag strength itself is really easy to understand. Every reel has a listed drag strength to base your leader and gear around. When you cast out and use your scroll wheel, you'll see a gauge that moves from 1 up to 29, and then at 30 it shows an infinity symbol. This symbol indicates what we call locking your reel, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Now, to demonstrate mech strength visually and go over the importance of drag versus mech strength, we're going to use a reel that everyone is familiar with, the Spark 2 2000. Now first we're going to use a setup where the leader is the exact strength of the drag, 3.2 kilos. To test the max drag we can use on this setup, we're going to get snagged on a bush or tree so that we can limit test. The safe way to do this is drop your drag to 1 before getting snagged and slowly increase your drag while reeling. This is something I recommend people do, especially when setting up ultralight rigs with smaller leaders so they can test their max drag before hooking into a big fish and getting instantly broken off. So again, we'll start at 1 and slowly increase the drag until we hit the breaking point. Ideally, we'd be able to put this up to 29 and still be around the orange range rather than in the red. Now let's move up to a 5 kilo leader and see what happens. And as you can see, it's still in the red. This is where the mech strength comes into play. This reel has a 3.2 kilo drag and a hidden 3.4 kilo mechanism strength. Since the mech strength is so close to the drag, it's hard to lower the strain on your gear when using the high end of your drag. For comparison, let's look at this Raptor 40, which has a 38.1 kilo drag and a 400 kilo mech. So with a 42 kilo leader at 29 drag, it looks like this. And with a 91 kilo leader at 29 drag, it looks like this. Notice how substantial the difference is in the end spaces on the tension bar between the Spark 2000 and the Raptor 40 when accounting for mech strength? This difference is what makes high mech strength so valuable. The mechanism strength of reels isn't listed in the game, but luckily there are simple ways to figure out the strength of your reels through spreadsheets or my Discord bot. And speaking of that, I'd like to take a minute to talk about my Discord community and everything we've worked to set up. Currently we have the custom cafe with weekly prizes, a new trophy bingo board, and we're working on a website to combine all the features of every other RF4 based site along with many more useful features and custom games. There's also a bot that I spent a long time building and setting up along with help from my friend Lilin, with commands like /trophy, /reelinfo, /mechware, and /activebaits. You should be able to find any needed information through the bot. During this next year, we're going to be setting up bracket format tournaments, with the goal being to push people into more unique fishing situations and expand the community's general game knowledge. We have a thriving voice chat community with tens of thousands of hours of game testing between us, so if you have any game questions, feel free to jump in and chat for a bit, or ask in the player questions chat where I do my best to go fully into detail explaining whatever it is you ask about. Everyone's welcome, and I hope to see you there. Alright, back to the video. Now let's talk about what happens when you lock your reel. There's a good reason the infinity shows up when you lock. It's because there's no limit to the amount of tension your reel will try to take on. The gap in your tension bar between where your drag sits at 29 and the very ends of the bar is the room you have to use your mech strength to attempt to muscle in the fish. This is a very difficult thing to learn how to do early in the game, and even harder to master with smaller gear like HSVs or EVAs, so do be careful attempting this if the fish is still actively fighting. I often recommend people wait until they get onto the ocean to learn how to lock, since the entire map is based around locking your reels to quickly tire out the fish, and the strength of the gear along with high elasticity shock leaders makes it much safer and more comfortable to learn. The line type that you use for your main line also affects this. Monoline has a ton of stretch and will make the tension bar fill slower, giving you more control and time to unlock your gear before it breaks. whereas braided line has almost no stretch and will immediately take full tension of the fish. Monoline isn't often used as a main line though, since it's so much thicker than braided line, meaning your reel will hold much less of it. Alright, at this point you should have a decent understanding of what mech strength is and how it correlates to the tension bar. So let's get into some advanced techniques and talk about when and where you'd typically use them. The first locking technique is one that I use frequently when catfishing, or for pulling up things like halibut and opah that I'll typically run straight down. For this method, you'll want to look up and bring your rod as high as you can before you lock. Doing this gives you another way to lower tension past just unlocking your reel and immediately losing a ton of line. As the fish pulls, instead of unlocking your reel, slowly lower your rod to match the fish's pace and stay locked until you're fully looking down. If the fish is about to break your lock, quickly unlock the reel, look up again, and restart the process. This gives you a lot more time holding high tension on the fish, so the fish will run out of stamina much faster. The next technique is similar, but this is meant for fish that immediately swim away from you, such as swordfish, tuna, and carp. For this method, instead of looking up, you'll want to do a 180 and face away from the fish before you lock. Then, you turn your body back towards the fish as the fish is running to achieve the same long duration of high tension that the previous method gives. The final technique I'd like to talk about is kind of special because it can be used with any strong reel and any rod that you're willing to break. The lock and walk method is the easiest locking method to visually understand, but the hardest to put into practical use. This method is typically used when sturgeon fishing, since the strongest bottom fishing hook has 87 kilos of strength and the strongest bottom rod only has 80.2 kilos of strength, meaning if you locked normally, there's a chance you'd lose a 20,000 silver rod. The most important step of this technique is to make sure you have room to walk directly backwards. Once you have a fish on that you can tell is too much for your rod to handle, look down until your rod is as low as it will go and point your rod directly at the fish. Then, lock your reel and take small steps backwards to drag the fish towards you. Be careful doing this if the fish is still actively fighting. If the fish turns its head or runs left or right, it can put tension back onto the rod and break it instantly. Just make sure you're paying attention and that you're ready to unlock at any moment. Alright guys, that's all for this guide. I do hope that I gave you enough information to feel more comfortable with the concept of locking and where you can put it into practical use. If you feel I missed something or want something further explained, you can ask in the comments or join my Discord to ask me there. Thank you guys for watching. Tight lines everyone.